Hi, I'm Justin, and welcome to Last Chance Diesel Repair. So for our first project, we're going to see if we can make this old dog bark again. You fucking guitar solo. So this is a 1974 Mack R700. It has a V8 engine, 6-speed with a 2-stick transmission, 55,000 pound Mack rears. It is a purebred Mack, so it has the gold dogs on the door. Right here. It also has Mack driveline, so it has Mack U-joints as well. So because of that, we want to see if we can restore it back to its original glory. You can see she's been sitting derelict for a very long time, but it is mostly original. As you can tell, there's the Mack caps for the trunnions, Mack camelback suspension, Mack axles. The truck's still mostly authentic to the time period, and we'd like to keep it that way if possible. Including the severe service air filter, which is still sitting in the seat, I see. So as you can see, the truck's still authentic to the time period, including the clock and tack. This is how they monitor drivers back in the day. Speedometer, tachometer, and then there's your clock in the middle. It's showing 398,000 miles. Very well could be double that. This is the 2-stick 6-speed transmission. So you have 5 on your main. On your secondary is low, direct, and then reverse. So you can shift 5 gears going backwards in this. Trailer emergency, parking brake. This is air wipers. There's your power divider locks. Ashtray, because you gotta have an ashtray back in the day. This is the passenger seat of the truck. Back in the day, they didn't build them they weren't thinking about passenger comfort. It still has the Mack logo embossed in the upholstery. This was just like a storage container. Some trucks it was a battery box, but in this case it's just storage. It was also only spec'd out with 1 sun visor. Some people say that the other side's missing, but if you look, it doesn't even have a spot for the screws. Mack was one of the only ones that had like a roof vent, which this one, it still works magically. So this was AC back in 1974. And of course we got the long Mack hood. Still has the document holder back here with the Mack Bulldog embossed on it. So that's this plastic little compartment there. Has the puppy dog on it.
Cute puppy.
That's the air filter restriction gauge for the 4-tox air cleaner. There's a butcher job for the radio, which I don't think it originally had. This truck's equipped with a Mack engine brake called a Dynatard. We don't know if it works yet. And as you can see, she's very basic. Just lights, panel lights, and wiper washer. These are air wipers too. This is your engine kill. And a couple of your basic gauges. Oil pressure, your volts, and your water temp. That's basically it. There's not much to these old trucks. This is a momentary switch to let people, to signal to let people come into your lane of traffic or to thank them. And there's a view down the big long hood. So this is an extended hood. That's why it's the R700. So the hood's about 8 to 9 inches longer than a standard R model, which makes it more unique. And a great big steering wheel. So this is the Mack V8 engine. This predates the E9 Mack. So this is another thing that makes it unique, and that's also the factory color. They paint them gold. This one's rated at 325 horse. And Mack back in the days, so I'm told, rated their horsepower at the rear drives. So this engine at the flywheel is likely 375, maybe even more. So according to the build sheet, this is still the original alcohol bottle, which they use to keep the brakes from freezing up. This, I believe, is your speedometer table. You can see you got lots of room to work. You can actually get at everything. This is the brakes for the extended hood. Your bus bar, all your electronics. Very, very little electronics with this truck. Battery box, which we need to get into here. This truck was originally spec'd out with 24 volt start and 12 volt run, which you can see. That's the way this is spec'd. You can tell because of the way it is. The batteries are hooked up in series, not parallel. So this, as you can see, we have some work to do to get her to start under our own power. This is the road draft tube. So that's the gases from the crankcase. They just have it venting out here. I believe this alternator is 24 volts. I'm not sure. Just judging by the size of it, I think this is 24 volts. There's likely a parallel switch somewhere on the truck here, somewhere that we'll have to find when we convert to 24 volts. This is the original air cleaner style. So this truck, unlike a lot of trucks back in the day, actually has front brakes. Most of them actually didn't. And these Macks, I'm told, have adjustable kingpins. Now this is a very unusual kingpin design, at least the cap. So we're gonna have to tear into that eventually. I'm kind of excited because I've never really worked on a Mack kingpin before. Most of them are just the normal Rockwell ones. That's all I've ever dealt with. This is a 16,000 pound front. With the stack of springs, it looks more like a current 20,000 pound front. I guess that's how they built them back in the day. Single exhaust with no shield, that was pretty common back in the day. A lot of times you would actually see chrome mufflers. I guess they weren't too worried about people being stupid and burning their hands on the exhaust. This is the headache rack. Originally this truck was spec'd out to haul aggregate. This was likely added by the logging company. The truck was spec'd out in New York by someone in New York. I'll have to pull up the build sheets. We'll do that in another video. But originally it was spec'd out to haul aggregate, and then somehow it ended up in Quebec. And I'm told it hauled logs for most of its career. So this likely would have been put on probably back in the 70s. And it is very well built. Maybe some of the trade practices are a little questionable, but like this. But these hooks were likely added. This is a shop edition, as you can see. Someone used an old stick welder and welded these on. This is where they would have hung the tire chains. I'm told this thing hauled log trailers, 4 and 5 axle log trailers. So this would have been extremely heavy. And it did haul them out of the bush in Quebec. The fifth wheel. I don't know too much about the fifth wheel. I didn't see any markings, but I only went kind of quickly around it. I believe this is a 100-ton fifth wheel. I've never seen one quite this heavy. If someone knows more about it, they're more than welcome to comment and explain. But this thing is extremely heavy. So this is another feature that makes it really unique to this truck. Mack rear ends, as you can tell, these are top loads, similar to a military style axle, and these are humongous. The torque rods themselves have reusable bushings. I'm told they're either brass or bronze. I believe it was bronze. The Mack driveline is still all original, or at least period correct. So these are Mack U-joints. So they actually have a grade 8 bolt on each side. I'm told they're very easy to change. A lot of the old time mechanics I've spoken to speak very fondly of this. Unlike a lot of the lighter Macks, the trunnion, so the brackets here, this is made out of very thick steel. Like that's like 3/4 of an inch at least. A lot of the lighter Macks was just tubing. This is made out of like heavy plate and was likely forged that way. So this is what they call a 54-inch spread, which makes me think that it was likely meant to stay in the US, but I could be wrong. So the spread is the distance between the center of the axles. In Canada, we like to see, especially in Quebec and Ontario, we like to see 60-inch spreads. That was common back in the day, and even 72-inch spreads. This is only 54, which you saw a lot of in upper New York State and areas like that. It's still recognized in Canada, though. Maybe not for as much as this truck was meant to haul, but that's fine. For all we're going to do with it, it'll be fine. So we're going to get this truck on in the shop. We're going to get her fired up, and I'll go through how you should go about starting one of these guys. What we want to do is we want to fix this truck up. I've been told I'm a little nuts for doing this, but as a kid I grew up watching a lot of these trucks and I really liked them. I am a diesel mechanic by trade, and it's just nice to work on something that doesn't constantly throw a fit and have a check engine light and has it derated at the side of the road. So I think this will be a bit of a treat. I grew up watching Convoy, Smokey and the Bandit, and highballing. Loved those movies growing up. My dad drove truck, and I've always had a fascination for trucks. So this is kind of a manifestation of that fascination. This will be the second truck that I've rescued. My service truck, which maybe we'll feature on the channel a little bit later. It was kind of sitting derelict too, not quite to this degree, of course. What we're hoping to do is go through it. It's likely we do have to peel some of this off and see how bad the cab is. I do suspect we are going to have to change the cab. We'll have to keep as many things as we can original, but I do think we're going to be into a cab. I think the cab's just too far gone. So this will be a bit of a family project, as well as my apprentice. He wants to work away at it, Tristan. I do own a diesel repair business, and we are going to use it for the business, likely just moving trailers, possibly moving a float. We're not sure yet. We'll have to see how this goes. It won't be banging miles up and down the road. It's not going to be going up and down the highway. It's probably going to lead a pretty pampered life at this point. But the restoration will take a lot of love, but hopefully we can do something to preserve history. I think it's important, especially for a lot of younger generations growing up, to see how they started and how drivers and mechanics, and as well as maybe businesses, operated 40, 50 years ago, because this would have been a very serious truck back in her day. You know, I think the drivers get really spoiled now with their creature comforts and whatnot, and it is very nice to have creature comforts, but this would have been a very serious truck on the highway back in the 70s. And even mechanics, we get pretty spoiled too. We plug into the truck and just start looking at codes. This actually, you had to physically know how to do a cylinder cutout test. You had to know what lines to crack. You had to look at heat signatures. You had to really know what you're doing. And I think we get spoiled like that too. So yeah, hopefully we can bring her back to life, and hopefully we can get her terrorizing the road again. This truck did sit in not a wrecking yard, but it sat in a collector's yard for well north of a decade, I'd say. The owner that I bought it from remembers seeing the truck as a kid actually hauling logs. So I really want to bring this truck back to life. I think it's really important to at least make a half-ass attempt. But yeah, hopefully you guys can stick around and see how we make out. So if you like this and you want to see me kind of beat my head against the wall fixing this kind of junk, as well as my wife and son and apprentice, you can like and subscribe. Also comment. I'd like to see what you guys think. Maybe I'm half nuts, maybe I'm not. And what's the better trucking movie? Is it Convoy, Smoking the Bandit, or Highballing? Leave a comment below.